Hello and welcome to my channel Polyglot Reading. My name is David and today I'm doing a tag. It's the tag, the Snob-O-Meter-Tag, and this tag was originally created by Isaiah from the channel That Reading Guy, and I was tagged by Lekden from the channel Reading from the Depth. I was also tagged by Heather from Heather Reads and Daniela, the Uncommon Reader. So thanks to all of you for creating the tag and for tagging me. Let's go through the prompts one after the other. Prompt number one, what is your definition of book snobbery? So I think that book snobbery is an attitude of looking down on other people because they are reading books that oneself considers being books of low quality, for example, on the artistic or on the intellectual scale. So it's not snobbery, it's not about a value judgment about the books, but more about the people who are reading these books. This is snobbery, according to my understanding. Prompt number two, is there a genre or type of book you would never consider reading? Such as, would you ever read a romance? Or if you regularly read romance, would you ever try a science fiction novel and so on? Okay, I got the idea. So I think with regards to the classic literary genres, I would say I do have my clear favorites, which are classics, but I'm pretty open to try and explore other genres. For example, I've just started a new series on my channel about science fiction, which I've not read in the past, but I'm curious and I started reading science fiction books. But there are some types of books that I would never consider reading. These are mostly a specific type of non-fiction books, books that are trying to sell some theories that, in my opinion, are just sham and quackery. For example, books on astrology and fortune telling, or on conspiracy theories, or on certain types of what I consider medical quackery or pseudoscientific claims, such as geomancy or dowsing and so on. So, but if you're talking about fiction, I think I would at least give any genre a try, a fair try. I am a notoriously curious person. I'm always sniffing around also in the far and dark corners of the literary cosmos. Prompt number three, does erotica count as literature? Sure, so does pornography and even your shopping list. Okay, let's be serious. I'm probably running the danger of looking like a smart ass here, but I think we need to talk a little bit about the definition and the history of the term literature here, and the way it is used in contemporary dictionaries, encyclopedias, and the way it is used by literary scholars of today. And you can easily verify it by looking at Wikipedia or any other modern dictionary or encyclopedia. This term, the meaning of this term, has considerably changed. In the past, up to the, I'd say, 18th century, the term literature was used in a very, very broad and inclusive way. It denoted almost anything that was written or printed, no matter the subject or the quality. And only quite late, around the 18th century, there was a snobbish shift in the use of the term, and its use was narrowed down to a value judgment based definition that considers only high quality fiction writing as literature. And this new definition of the 18th century has been very powerful and influential. It still seems to linger in our heads nowadays, as we can also clearly see in this prompt about whether erotica count as literature or not. And the funny thing is that this snobbish definition of literature has been outdated for almost a century. In literary studies today, we have long since returned to this very broad definition of literature as it was common before the 18th century. So to cut a long story short, yes, erotica count as literature. It is simply one of many literary genres and text types, as are novels and poems and science fiction and sermons and prayers and shopping lists. And as with all genres and text types, there is a wide range of different levels of originality and artistic quality. And so trying to cut a long story short. I'm tempted to say something about the word count in the prompt. Does erotica count as literature? But I'll probably get back to that in the prompt about audiobooks. Okay, moving on to the fourth prompt. Is it better to read popular books than no, is it better to read classic books than popular bestsellers? Oh, I would say that totally depends on the objective of your reading. If your main objective is to be entertained, and if you specifically enjoy the typical twists and elements of contemporary genres, such as young adult and romance and horror and science fiction, etc., and if you want to be able to participate actively in cocktail party small talk about the latest books on the market, then in that case, it is better for you to read popular bestsellers. And if this also matches your reading taste and your objectives. If you, on the other hand, if you want to have a high success rate in finding books of a high artistic literary quality, and if you're interested in how certain ideas and beliefs and desires and fears and worldviews of humanity have developed throughout human history, then it's probably better for you to read classics. So that would be a more appropriate way for you to achieve this aim or objective. So there is no better or worse here. It's just a matter of your interest and of your objective. So what do we want to achieve by reading? Prompt number 5. Have you ever bragged about reading a classic in order to sound smart? Yes, I'm sure I did. Not as an adult though, but I think in my childhood and in my teenage years, being the nerdy bookish outsider, the only bookish person in my class, and being not very good at sports, in particular at not being a catastrophe in the field of football or soccer. Yeah, and it was, I think, out of a feeling of insecurity and of low self-esteem. That I'm sure I also tried this strategy of bragging about the books I read. Didn't work out, not very surprisingly. So I think I quickly learned my lesson that bragging about the books you read is not a sensible strategy. Okay, prompt number 6. Do audiobooks count as reading? And yeah, what about comics or graphic novels? Yeah, first, I had to smile or chuckle a bit at the word count. So I think to me, this sounds like a very funny concept that immediately triggered the thought, so who the heck is doing the counting here? Does anyone really believe in some kind of reading deity who keeps track of what we read and how much we read and is keeping a list and a record of this? So, and does this reading deity have a sort of a rule book that specifies what kind of literature counts and what doesn't count? So this seems to be a funny concept. And in this case, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool heretic. I'd say whatever you count counts. Whatever you want to count, that counts. If you want to count as reading all the inscriptions of tombstones that you have looked at, then for you, this counts as reading. Full stop. For you. And so I do understand that the actual issue at hand here is probably the term reading. And I've seen lots of videos on BookTube of people trying to justify or to question the idea whether or not audiobooks count as reading. And I think that the whole problem here is with the word reading. Of course, you don't read audiobooks, you listen to them. So listening is not reading, such as eating is not drinking. But both eating and drinking are just different modes of uptake, of food uptake, of ingestion. So reading a book and listening to an audiobook are two different modes, but with the same objective of consuming literature. They are just different modes, but with the same objective, consuming, enjoying literature. They are just two different routes of channeling literature into your brain. So they're different, but they are of equal value, at least for me. So, and then there's a second part of the prompt about comic books or graphic novels. So does this also count as reading, or phrased differently, as consuming literature? This has two aspects. So I think whether looking at images can be considered reading, probably not. if there's no text involved. It's technically not reading. But if you think about it, whether comic books or graphic novels or just a sequence of pictures can be considered as literature. Remember my reply to the third prompt. Yes, sure as hell they do. So I think it doesn't make sense to enter into a nitpicking battle whether the term reading should be applied here. This is literature, and looking at graphic novels or at comics is a way of consuming literature. I have no doubt about it. I would love to challenge your or our preconceptions about literature by showing, displaying just a wonderful example of a graphic novel that tells a very touching story with many nuances and very easy to understand, but without a single printed word, except for the title. So this is this British book here, The Arrival by Sean Tan. This book is just paintings, just graphic images. There's not a single word in it, but still it is literature because it tells a very touching story of immigrants, how they are threatened in their home country. There's this danger, this mysterious threat in the background, and how they prepare for their departure. There are these sad moments when they have to say goodbye to their homeland and to their loved ones. And there's the danger of the long travel, and then when they finally arrive, they feel overwhelmed and lost and clueless in a new country where everything is so different from home, and where you do not understand any of the signs and symbols. So where people behave different, and where you do not understand any word of that language, and then yeah, the people are partly indifferent and partly hostile, and then you have just this daily struggle to survive, to make ends meet, to learn the new language, and to get accustomed to the new culture and its strange rules. So this is all pictures, not a single word, except some strange symbols to signify that you're surrounded by a new language that you can't make any sense of. Yeah, but still, I think that's good. There could be no doubt about it that this is literature, and high quality literature. And yeah, it's pointless to discuss whether this counts as reading. It's looking at this beautiful book is a way to enjoy literature. Okay, so let's move on to prompt number 7. Have you ever looked down at someone for reading a popular fluff book, a book with little substance to it, for example, a help book, or a celebrity memoir? I don't think so. Um, I may have looked down at the book. So I think in that perspective, I am a book snob. Sometimes I do have a very clear and strong opinion about the literary quality, artistic quality, or about the intellectual value of a book. But I don't transfer or impose that on the reader of that book. I think that's an important difference here. Uh, I must admit, though, that sometimes I do assess how interesting a person is to me as a conversation partner on certain topics. And I do this sometimes based on the books that this person reads or owns. So if I'm visiting a friend, and I see that this friend's bookshelves are filled with books about celebrity memoirs and conspiracy theories, I can still be very good friends with that person, and enjoy spending time with the person. But I know that they are just not the right person to talk to about certain topics like the philosophy of the Enlightenment. So the books people read, yeah, they do affect the way I look at them, but not as a value judgment about their personality, but more or less regarding their fitness as a discussion partner for certain topics. Point number 8. Have you ever been the recipient of someone else's snobbery? I might have, but not of the usual kind of snobbery, but a very special kind of book snobbery, of not approval of the books that I'm reading. So I grew up in an environment where parts of my family belong to very, very strict, highly observant, almost fundamentalist religious movement. And in particular, my paternal grandparents, who lived in the same house with us, they were of the opinion that as a good Christian, you must not read fiction of a certain type. So they did not even approve of even some of my children's books. For example, my paternal grandfather refused to read to me the children's books like such as illustrated children's books like or comics to me, because according to his way of thinking, this sort of invented stories about impossible things such as a duck or a mouse speaking and behaving like humans. So for him, this was just lies. And so one should not spend time reading all these lies, because lying is bad. It's a work of the devil. And so one should not, or I should not read this sort of text. So it was not snobbery in the term of looking down, but of a subtle form of letting me know that they are disapproving of certain books that I read. Luckily, my parents were not of the same opinion, so I had my fair share of comics and children's books to read. Okay. Next prompt. Would you ever be friends with a snob? Maybe you already are. I'd say that really depends on the level of this person's snobbery or book snobbery. Nobody's perfect. So I think that I can be quite lenient and forgiving with regards to people's little character flaws, and I'm sure I myself have plenty of them. But if this snobbery is something that pops up frequently in everyday life, in our meetings, and if this is a snobbery directed against me, so if this person is showing clear signs of looking down on me, I'd not be able to be friends with such a person. I'm not willing to invest time and energy and emotions into a friendship with such a person. Prompt number 10. Are people who don't read less sophisticated than people who do? Let me try to reply with a question. Are people who don't eat cereals for breakfast less athletic than people who do? I don't think so, or maybe they are on a statistical average, but not because of a simple mechanistic cause and effect thing at work here. Eating cereals for breakfast does not automatically make you an athlete. If you do it the wrong way, huge quantities and no physical exercise, you may just become obese or get diabetes. But still, cereals for breakfast can help you becoming more athletic if you do it the right way. But still, there are also other ways of becoming athletic even without any cereals in the morning. So that's pretty much how I see the role of reading in becoming sophisticated. Reading a lot doesn't mean you're automatically going to be sophisticated. You may just end up filling your brain with a lot of crap and nonsense. And I know also quite a lot of people who are very sophisticated without reading a lot. They just live their life with a certain attitude and with an open mind. They are always reflecting and thinking and learning a lot just by observing people, interacting with people, traveling, and thinking a lot, reflecting the experiences they make, and always eager and with an open mind to make new sorts of experiences. But of course, if you do it the right way, also reading a lot, the right books, and with the right attitude, can be a real boost to on your path to become a sophisticated person. But it's not an easy cause and effect relationship, and all readers are sophisticated, and everybody who doesn't read is not sophisticated. No, it's not that simple. Prompt number 11. Measure yourself based on your answers to the previous 10 questions. Would you qualify as a book snob? So, as a scientist, I like quantitative approaches. And so I'd say on a scale from 0 to 10, I think I would be at a level of about 2, because I do have some clear value judgments about the artistic and intellectual qualities of books. I think not all books are created equal. But I think this is acceptable because I do not look down on the readers of those books that I consider of lower quality or value. So, well, that's as honest a self-assessment as I can do regarding the Snob-O-Meter. Okay, point number 12 would be to tag some people, but I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that because I think I'm quite late to the party. Most of the English speaking booktubers that I know, or that I'm subscribed to, they have already seen or have even already done this tag. So it just wouldn't make much sense for me tagging a huge list of people here. So if you are a content creator and have not yet done this tag, you're tagged, and I'm looking forward to seeing your take on this interesting tag. So thanks again to the inventor Isaiah of this tag, and to the 3 other content creators who tagged me. Hope you have enjoyed my take on this tag. Let me know in the comments. Hope to see you next time. Take care. Bye bye and ciao.